Welcome back to the best weight loss podcast in the world, where the fat is burned and the wheels are turning. I have my usual tall, dark, and handsome host with me today, John Arpino.
How you doing?
Oh, sorry.
And then we got the fatty daddy himself, Danny, doing a little bit different order today because we have a very special guest. He's one of the longest reigning weight loss social media personalities of all time, losing a total of around 180 pounds and maintaining that for over 10 years. Not to mention the guy drives around in a red Mustang that Ellen gave him on the show before she was canceled. He's got the most famous loose skin in the world. He's a master of disguise and is a commentator that brings out the BS in the weight loss industry. A drummer, a skateboarder, a streamer, a runner, a CrossFitter, a bodybuilder, and an uncle, an icon. Some would even call him the GOAT of weight loss. Folks, we're happy to have him. Give it up for John David Glaude, a.k.a. Obese to Beast.
Jeez, dude, you're making
God damn, brother. Thanks for the house.
good.
God damn.
That was good.
Hey, I did a little research, okay?
How long did it take ChatGPT to write that, bro?
Nah, I wrote that. I tried, not to lie, I tried ChatGPT and it didn't give me what I was looking for.
No, I think, yeah, you knew all the deep cuts, and like, I mean, me and Annie have been friends for like literally, I don't even know, close to 10 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's great. That was
and then there's me. Hey guys, I'm chilling with the cool kid today. That's how I feel.
No, that was great, man. That was great.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, wrote that up myself. Thank you very much. Anyways, let's get into the podcast. Like I said, we do have a very special guest today with us, John. So, you know, you've probably told your stories a lot, but for the people who maybe are listening to this that don't know who you are, which I have a feeling that's going to be a very little amount of people, but let's kind of go through it. Start a little bit earlier, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, as far as like, you know, things that kind of happened in your life that got you to the point of like, I need to make a change.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yes, I have told my story a lot, but I don't want to be that guy that's just going to assume people know my story, because I feel like that's incredibly douchey. But like, I mean, I really can start from the beginning. So I was born in 1992. No, but for real, like, so growing up, one thing I've talked about this a lot. Anything that I really share here is, it's not like, I don't want people to be like, oh, I feel weird that he was being so intimate. I've talked about this stuff, right? So growing up, we were very, very poor. I actually ended up getting taken away from my mom when I was like 3 years old, and I was put into Child Protective Services because of drug stuff. And then we were not living with her for about a year, and then we ended up getting put back with her. Luckily, she was able to get off drugs and has stayed clean ever since then. But that was a very formative thing that happened in my childhood. I had a lot of siblings, but for the most part, I lived with my full siblings. I have a bunch of half siblings, but full siblings. So I had a younger sister and an older brother, and then we had my mom. And so we were put back with her, which was cool. But, you know, when you are coming off of a drug addiction, it's like money is going to be tight, right? So we were very poor, right? I used to not use that word, I think. But then my girlfriend started calling me out, and she was like, it's okay to say you were poor, because I was like, we just didn't have a lot of money, and like, but it was like, you were poor, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? And so we were very poor, you know, Section 8 growing up, which is like government housing and food stamps, all, you know, all of the above. And so like money for us was always really tough. And the reason I tell that story is because I really think that it is a very integral part into why I got to my heaviest. And so growing up, like, food was always, it wasn't what is the healthiest thing, it's what is the most convenient thing, right? So that was a really big thing in my family. And like, what can I, like, my mom, I'm assuming she would think, what can I make that doesn't cost a lot of money, that doesn't require a lot of time in the kitchen, that will feed a big family. And then we wouldn't eat dinner together, right? So it was a big pot of food, and you went and got it. And so the faster you ate, the more servings you got. And so something, I'm 31 now, that I still struggle with is eating too much food and eating it too quickly, right? And so I became very good at eating very fast. And so I think all of that kind of led me into starting to gain weight at a very young age. So I was like one of those people that I got bigger at a very young age. I was just big. Then I would get bigger every year. It was like a new size shirt, bigger size pants, right? I was wearing Husky sizes, whatever that, I don't even know if that exists anymore. When I was a kid, right? And so I kind of just like started gaining weight. I was like chubby in elementary school. I was definitely the fat kid in middle school. And then in high school, I was like the biggest kid at my school, right? So it was like, I was slowly gaining weight. And I guess like I don't want to fast forward too much, but I don't want to go over every little detail. If there's any questions, right, of course I'll answer those. But once I was in high school, you know, my identity was completely tied to my size. It was everything. It was a huge part of who I was. I had a nickname in high school, Cupcake, that was given to me by people trying to be mean to me. And I kind of took it and I spun it as a way to be a positive. And so I was definitely like the funny fat kid in high school. I really leaned into that. And so I really, you know, I was really lucky in the sense. So it was a double-edged sword. In high school, I was lucky because I didn't get made fun of that much. But the reason I didn't get made fun of was because I was making fun of myself all the time, right? And so it was like a defense mechanism. And the reason I say that that's a double-edged sword is because no one wants to get bullied. It's horrible, right? No one wants it's terrible to get bullied, and you're such an easy target when you're the fattest kid at school. Like, you're such an easy target. And so I would make fun of myself, and I would be able to kind of get in with people that normally probably would have made fun of me, but also it made my self-esteem just like non-existent. And so I just didn't have much self-esteem, right? So I'm continuing to gain, you know, probably by the time I graduate high school, I'm probably 300 pounds, if not more. And then once I get out of high school, I get even more sedentary because I used to skate to school a lot of times. And like, I remember people would like see me and they're like, for a big guy, you can move pretty well, right? That was like something I really liked because I would skate and stuff. And people, I would like skate down the street and I would see cars like, what the heck? Like, how does he do that, right? And I liked that. But then like as I got into college, I didn't have a car, but I was like taking the bus to school, and I became even more sedentary and just gained even more weight. So I graduated when I was 17, and the next 3 years, so I started losing weight when I was 20. The next 3 years, I just started gaining and gaining and gaining. And it got to a point where when I was like 19 and 20, I genuinely, and now this is probably my own issues when it comes to ADHD and all of that stuff of like over analyzing and freaking out for things that probably weren't that big of a deal. But when I was 20, I was genuinely afraid to be home alone. And the reason for that was because I was like, well, if I have a heart attack, who's going to be here? Right. And like 20, I was literally still a kid. Right. Yeah. But that was like a genuine fear that I had. And so like, these were things that were going on in my life. At this point, I was working at the Vans shoe store, and even I would only work, because I was part-time, I would only work like 4-hour shifts. But like, even standing on my feet for that long, right, even with the break in the middle, it was torturous. Like, it hurt so bad, right? I remember one time when I worked at the Vans shoe store, like, the thing is, like, when you go into the back of the shoe store, it's just racks, very tall, all the way to the ceiling of shoes that you slide and you get the shoe. So you have to get on a ladder. The ladders were rated for 250, and I was 350 by that time for sure. One time I remember my manager was sitting at the desk back there, and I was climbing to get some shoes, and I fell off the ladder. And luckily I was fine. It wasn't like I didn't have an injury or anything. And I just laughed it off. I was embarrassed, but I laughed it off. And he was like, he like said something along the lines of like, oh, dude, I was really worried there. Because like this guy, he's a pretty young dude, right? And we were like friends. And he was like, because like, I mean, those things are rated for 250, right? And I was just like, okay, I got you. And so, like, you know, he was, you was,
you motherfucker.
It's not like he would have really probably gotten in trouble, right? But it's like, does he want to deal with all the paperwork? I mean, he's a young dude, probably in his 20s, right, at the time. Yeah. I understand it. I didn't even feel bad that he said that. Honestly, it's not until a while afterwards that I realized, I was like, oh, I guess that's kind of rude, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah. But yeah, so I was working, and I just remember I was in so much pain when I'd work at this job, and it was like embarrassing because I would say it to my coworkers, and I think they would hear me and be like, yeah, my feet hurt, but like the amount that I complained, I like kind of feel bad now looking back. I was like, damn, I complained a lot, because it was painful. It was really, really hard. The shoes, this was before Vans had like the more comfortable stuff, so it was just like the classic Vans, right, that I was wearing. But so then probably when I was 20 years old, like my click moment happened after I had went to a wedding for one of my best friends. Well, he's one of my best friends, but my best friend's older brother, who is one of my best friends as well. But he was living in Utah at the time, and I live in San Diego. It's like a 13-hour drive. I wasn't going to pay for a flight. Honestly, I wouldn't probably have been able to fit on a seat. at that point. But like the whole family, again, we didn't have much money, so flying really wasn't an option, right? It was like carpool, everyone put in some money for gas, and that's the easiest way to get there. And so when we went there, you know, well, first off, before we even went, I went and tried to find clothes, right? And like I have before and after pictures that I use from this wedding, because this was like right before I started losing weight. But I had this, I used to go to Burlington Coat Factory all the time because they had a really good big and tall section. And they had this Rockaware shirt that I really liked. And it was like a button down shirt that was like kind of plaid-ish. I don't even know how to explain it, but I don't know. I'll throw you guys a photo, or I'm sure you've seen it, Danny, at some point. And I had those, and then I had Dickies because they make sizes up to like 60 or more, I think, inch waist. So that was the only pants that I wore. And then some Vans that I got at work because I got 50% off, right? And I remember thinking, this outfit is sick, right? But the thing is, it was so hard to even find a shirt that I liked, right? It was luckily my best friend was down to go shopping with me and like look for stuff. Like, you know, my friend Nolan, like we've been friends since I was like 6 or 7 years old, right? And so like that was annoying trying to find the clothes. But then when we drive up there, the whole time I'm not drinking any water. I am eating just like snacks, right? And we finally get up there after 13 hours. It was like a, you know, whole day trip. We left really early in the morning, got there in the evening. And when I went to get out of the car, I like felt really lightheaded and like had to like sit back down in the car. Right. And there was like a party going on at the house that we were staying at. And people like noticed it and they're like, "Oh dude, are you okay?" And I was just like, I wasn't, but I was at that time too. I didn't have health insurance. So like I wasn't going to go to the doctor anyways. So I was just like, yeah. But in my head, I was like the amount of because I have anxiety, but the amount of anxiety I felt at that moment, because it was like everything is coming true, right? I'm dying, really. Like that's how I felt, right? And I was so scared, but I was just like, don't freak out. I'm just gonna play it cool. It's like, oh yeah, you know, I think I just haven't been drinking water. Elevation change, you know, I just got lightheaded. And so they gave me some like Advil or whatever. And luckily it wasn't anything serious. I don't really know exactly what it was. It might have been a mixture of those things, but like I was really scared, right? And it was like, this is my size, right? But then like I had this outfit that I was so stoked with, right? And like I wore it to the wedding, but I remember even like at that party when I would sit down in my shirt, the buttons would pop open. This is a 5XL shirt, but like it just didn't fit, right? And so we have the wedding. It was fun. You know, there's some cute girls there that I was just like, damn, I would love to try and talk to them, but I'm not gonna. And so we were there for a couple days. We drive back home, and then, you know, a few weeks later, whenever the photos come out, I see the pictures, and I was just like, damn, you know, because it's like I felt so good. Like I got a haircut, had a fade, you know, I had buzz cut, fade. I was feeling myself. Yeah. But then I see the photos and I just like, it's like when I would think about myself, it's like you have this image of like a big dude, right. But then when you see the way you look as a big dude, at least for me, it was like, why can't I be the big dude who is like shoulder, chest area is the big part and not the belly and like the belly area and the lower back was the big part for me. I'm
really glad we all had the same thoughts.
It was like this, right? Like an onion, right? Or whatever. Like, I don't know. One of those, the dude from, the guy from Night Before Christmas that has the two faces, you know what I'm saying? That's like, that was my body type, right?
That's great.
And so, but it was just like, I remember I even had a coworker. I worked at another place called Vaughn's, which was a grocery store, that after I had lost weight.
From Vans to Vaughn's.
I know. I worked at both of them at the same time, actually. But they said like, oh, your spare tire is going down. And she was an older woman. And I was like, yeah, that's basically what it was. But yeah, so like I saw those pictures, but I tell this story. That wasn't my click moment. But that really planted a seed in me, right? And so then I go from that, and then maybe a few weeks later, I end up watching. I'm like sitting. This is when Netflix was kind of new, especially like the streaming part of it was kind of new. I was watching Miami Ink, which is a show about tattoos. I had tattoos at the time. I still have them. But I only had tattoos on my forearms, but I wanted more, but I didn't want to get them because I was like, well, if I get them on like my upper arms or anywhere else, like I just feel like they wouldn't look good, right? And so I'm like watching this show almost like longingly, like it was like aspirational. You know, I'd see these people get these beautiful pieces on their back or like even their legs, and I was just like jealous, honestly. And then a guy came on the show that had lost a lot of weight, and honestly, like I don't remember the episode, but it was basically like along the lines of like he was getting a tattoo about I think it was a cheeseburger to commemorate his weight loss, and they were talking to him because they would like do like little mini interviews when they were getting their when they were getting their tattoos, and the guy asked him how'd you lose the weight, and he was just like, you know, I realized it was a choice thing. I was just making decisions, and like at that moment, I was just like, I just need to make different decisions and better decisions. I think up until that point, it was very easy to feel like blame other people or other reasons, or just feel like it's not my fault. I just was dealt a bad hand.
Right.
When in reality, there is some truth to that, right? Like I really was kind of not dealt the best hand, but I would also apply it to like, I just genetically am supposed to be this size. And
we've all been there.
Yeah. And like, you know, I'm not one of those people that like, I don't think everyone needs to be super incredibly fit, like the most fit person. Like I think that there are some people that you can naturally be a little bit bigger, but like naturally I was not supposed to be 400 pounds. Like, it's just not, that's just not what I was supposed to be. But I really felt that way because I had tried to lose weight so many times. I put that in quotes. I know that if everyone's listening, but like I tried to lose weight, but as I look back on it now, the things that I was doing, one, they weren't sustainable, and they were just not, they weren't going to work. Like, I remember one time when I was really young, my mom got Slim Fast at work, and I was just like, all right, cool, I'll just drink that, and we'll be good, bro.
And I'll be Slim Fast, baby.
I was probably eating more calories because I would drink the Slim Fast. I'm like, all right, lunchtime as well, let's freaking go. You know, and so, like, I didn't know, you know, I was like 11 years old. But like, so my weight was a thing that I'd struggled with my entire life.
I used to think Hydroxycut would just make me skinny.
Yeah, well,
and Stacker too.
That's why it's not there anymore. You know, it works too well. No, but so like, so that was like my click moment. Like honestly, like I went from. I remember I was sitting there watching the show at night. I had a double entree plate of Panda Express, had orange chicken, fried white rice, chow mein, and a large soda. And that was kind of my click moment. I finished the food because I didn't want to waste it, of course.
Oh yeah.
And then, and then the next day, I remember I woke up and it genuinely felt like I had this weight lifted off my shoulders. It was like, I finally told myself, I'm gonna do this. It wasn't every other time when I would try and lose weight, there was some sort of outside force urging me forward, right? Like encouraging me, which I understand. I had family that would try and help me, and they did it out of love. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing it for yourself, I don't see it working, because at the end of the day, losing weight is a very personal thing, and you have to make decisions every second of the day, especially at the start when it feels impossible. It feels like those decisions take every second of the day. You have to make the quote unquote right decision, the thing that's difficult. And so if you're doing that to appease someone else, eventually they're not going to be in the room, right? Eventually you're going to realize you can just maybe not tell them the truth that you actually ate this instead of that, right? And so it was this feeling of like, I'm gonna do this because I want to do this, right? And so like that morning I woke up, I went and I got a haircut because I was like, this is it. It's time to change, right? So I was like, I'm going to get a haircut. I went to Vaughn's, not the one I worked at. I went to Vaughn's and I bought some water and sandwich stuff because I was like, I don't know, it's healthy. And that's what I started with. Like I literally, that was the genesis of everything. That was my click moment. And like from there on out, I mean, we can go into it more if you want, but from there on out, it was just like over time. At first I started with just literally, I didn't know what a calorie was. I didn't know anything about nutrition. So it was like, what is healthier, right? And so I was just eating a lot of sandwiches and like the things that you know are healthy, right? And know are healthy. But like when you don't know anything about nutrition, right? Like sandwiches and like salads and things like that, right? Yeah. And then the big thing was the things that I kind of took out, right? So for me, I would drink like a 2-liter soda basically every day, right? And then I was eating fast food pretty much every day. And this is when McDonald's was actually cheap. And seriously, this is crazy. And I would eat, like I would walk to 7-Eleven because there was one that was close to my house. And I would, like most days I would get like a bunch of snacks, right? And then also a big soda with it. And so it was like cutting out the things that I was like, okay, no matter how much you know about nutrition, these are things that you probably shouldn't be doing if weight loss is something you want to do. And then from there, it just kind of, I refined it over time and started learning more. And, you know, one thing led to another, and I, you know, got an LN and got a car, and now I'm on this podcast.
Oh, so you went from
like
obese
10
to
years.
beast. Got it. All right.
Yeah. It's like 10 years that I've condensed that we can get into, but there's just so much in between all of that stuff. I don't want to be here for 3 years just without any questions or anything. But yeah, so like that was kind of like the start of everything. And then, you know, it's been about a decade since it's been more than a decade since I started, but it's been about a decade that I've been talking about it and posting about it online.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing that I really want to get into. Is it's one thing to lose that amount of weight, but as we all know, the most difficult part is keeping it off, especially doing it naturally or the old-fashioned way.
Traditional weight loss.
As RP likes to say.
Way God intended, brother.
That was good. We could actually end the whole podcast right there. That was great.
But you know, we've talked about this before, both on talks as well as personally. Like, it really is a continued inspiration for me, that the success that you've had as long as you've had it. Mm-hmm. And so if you were to summarize in 3 points, what, like, the secret you think that you've been able to tap into, you know, that has allowed you to do that, like, what would be the top 3 things that you would say that have made it so that you've been able to be so sustainable with it?
Okay. That's a great question. First one is consistency.
Dive deeper a little bit.
Yeah. So like, well, yeah. Consistency and like,
we know, John. We know.
So they go kind of hand in hand. And so I don't know if this would be 2 parts or 1 part, but like consistently being good enough is probably, like, if you were to ask me what like a term would be, right?
Okay.
The overarching term, consistently being good enough. And so I would say, like, so consistency, and then that'd be the first one. We'll dive deeper, right? So that would be the first one. I think, like, the second 2 words that will be the phrase would be good enough.
Uh-huh.
And then I would think the third one would be grace or forgiveness.
Okay.
And so the reason that I use all those 3, they kind of come all together in, like, the overarching theme, I would say, is that I'm consistently good enough, and I give myself grace when I make mistakes. And so when it comes to my diet, I make tons of videos showing my diet. Danny has made comments about it. I eat very similar foods all the time, but they're not anything special. There are plenty of people that would see what I eat and say, that's not quote unquote healthy, right? And my answer is always, well, it's good enough, right? It works for me. And I don't stress about being perfect. Really, like, one saying that I love, I do not know who came up with it. I remember, I think the first time I heard it was Will Smith way back in the day talking about it. I remember Casey Neistat used to talk about it a lot, but it's this idea of not letting perfect get in the way of good enough. That is my favorite way to look at it, because one thing with working with other people, trying to help them lose weight, and then just obviously been doing this for so long, so many people struggle with feeling like the diet, the thing that they're doing, has to be perfect.
Right.
And if it's not perfect, what's the point? And so I don't know, it's almost like naturally it kind of started happening, where I was like, I'm just going to do what is working for me. And what was working for me wasn't perfect, but it was, again, like, it was just naturally. I just found these things through doing them and realizing, oh, I'm not gaining a ton of weight, so I can continue doing this thing, right? And so, like, that's honestly, like, those would probably be the main things. And then I will, like, going a little bit deeper as far as, like, during the times and how it happened, because I don't want people to get a false idea, because I do feel that it's sometimes when you, like, I'm very far removed from losing the weight. It's been a long time. It's been 10 years, right? Since I was in the trenches, like, feeling those hunger pains, feeling like, how am I always going to want this meal? Am I always going to want McDonald's? Am I always going to wish I had these things? Because those are very real fears of mine, right? That I truly, and I say this not as, like, someone that's trying to like be woo woo, but like eventually that stuff, it really does go away. At least for me, it did. Like those feelings, those intense feelings. And like I said at the start, it felt like every second I had to make this decision and make sure I wasn't, now that doesn't exist, right? It's those like, oh, I just need to do a good job. I just need to do a good job, right? At the start, that was kind of how I felt. Now it's more like, I got this. Like I just know what I need to do. And I also know what I would need to do to get back to the size that I was is so diametrically opposed to the life that I live now that it is crazy for me. Again, this is just my experience. It is crazy for me to think about doing those things that would lead me back to being basically 400 pounds. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent there, but
it was good enough.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
There was a time, and let me know if you want to get into this or not. I feel like you have talked about this before on your channel for sure. I don't think you've talked about it much, but there was a time that, when I knew you, that you did experience some like binge eating type behavior, right? I can think back to when I stayed at your house that one time.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, I just ate like 10 Quest bars.
Yeah.
I was like,
did I tell you in the moment?
You told me after. I was editing, I think, and you were in your kitchen, and then you came in, and you were like, dude, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And you were like,
I feel bad for your stomach. So, that's a lot of fiber. Holy cow.
It was not a good experience.
Yeah. But so like, that's something that within that, like keeping things off naturally, like that's something that a lot of people end up struggling with, whether it be like actually diagnosed or just similar behavior. What was it for you that helped you kind of work through that?
Yeah. So, well, first I'll get into kind of how that happened. And so the reason that I told the story of like how it started was like, I used to call it the common sense diet, right? Just cutting things out that I was like, I know that these things are not healthy for me. But then eventually, as I started to learn more, I started to really internalize this feeling of calories are bad. They are the thing that made me the size that I am and this thing that I do not enjoy being, right? And so I need to avoid them at all costs, right? And so it was like how I basically, and this took time, right? So eventually it started the best intentions, and then I started like cutting some stuff out, realizing, trail mix is probably not actually the best idea for me to eat, right? Like learning to look at the nutrition labels and stuff like that. But then it kind of just slowly started to be more and more disordered, because like I would start to just, instead of like, I just need to make sure I'm eating enough to lose weight and I'll be happy. It went from that to how little food could I eat in a day?
Right.
Because the way I saw it was the less food I eat, the faster I'll lose weight, the happier I'll be. And I remember I even had my best friend Nolan. We were driving one time back to his house, and I think like he had noticed that I wasn't eating much, or I don't remember how the conversation started, but I literally told him. He was like, dude, I don't think you're eating enough. And I was like, yeah, I know that what I'm doing isn't the best, but I was like, once I lose the weight, then I'll fix it, right? And I wish I could tell you how I was able to like have that mindset and actually do that. Because honestly, like if I heard me say that, anyone else that I was talking to, working with say that, I'd be like, you're crazy. That is such a bad idea, right? Because I know plenty of people that their mind is only on how fast can I lose weight? Lose weight. I need to lose more weight. And I'm always like, you got to think about end goal. What do you eventually want? You can't lose weight forever. You will disappear, right? Like there has to be an end point. And like, what are you going to do when you get that? And I think a lot of people really struggle with it, and myself included, because it felt impossible. Like end point. What do you mean? I'm never going to get there. Like that's how I felt. It just didn't feel like it was possible. It did not feel possible to me, right? And so eventually, but once I got there, I was like, I didn't know what to do, because I was like under eating so severely. And like the way that it started to turn into binge eating for me was I would eat like 700 to maybe 1,100 calories a day. And I would do that for 3 days, 4 days. And then bam, I would binge, right? And so for me, that meant just eating to a point where it's like, the way that I explain it is like, it felt like there was like this cloaked figure behind me, right? And I could always kind of feel their presence, and they were always kind of there. I always had this little thing in my head, but then they would like, once they would kind of like almost grab me, like lay their hand on me, that day, it didn't matter what time of the day, it was like, oh, I'm going to binge today. And it wasn't like I didn't have a control over it. It was just like, I just knew that this thing had decided today is the day, right? And so then that night, it was always at night, I would eat and eat and eat and like try and get myself to stop. I would try like, and then like eventually I started like learning, oh, if I have oatmeal with like a bunch of like more fat in it, that would usually kind of get me to stop. But it would be like, it was just so many calories, right? So much food. One time I literally ate a whole box of plain Chex with no milk, just dry. And like, just things that it's like, I didn't even enjoy it, right? I didn't even enjoy the food, but it was just like this compulsion. And so eventually, like the way that I kind of got through it was, I think for me, I started to learn more about nutrition. I started lifting, which helped me because I realized I needed more energy. Like at the time when I was like in the middle of the binges and like when it was really bad, like I would like every time I would like go to get up, I would feel lightheaded. You know, I just had zero. I could barely do anything, right? I was losing weight, but I was like useless. And once I started lifting, I realized that I was going to have to eat more calories. That wasn't like what fixed it. I actually was still struggling with it. And then I decided to do a physique show, a men's physique show in 2016. And so at that point I literally couldn't binge because it would have ruined the show. This is gonna ruin the world tour.
I mean, it could ruin the show or it could ruin you. Either one.
Yeah. But like, yeah, exactly. No, but exactly. But like, I was like laser, like, it's not gonna happen, right? It's not, and thankfully I was able to like not binge, but I was so scared. So this is 2016. So, it's been 8 years. I was so scared of like, once I'm done with the show, like I was so afraid of gaining all the weight back because it's common for physique competitors that have never struggled with their weight to gain 30 pounds right away. And that was like, I was like that, like I said, it wasn't an option for me. Like I was like, that can't happen. Obviously it could, but like in my brain, it was so like, that can't happen. And again, I don't even know if it was like the healthiest thing or the best thing, but like, it was like, that was like a hard line that I drew. Like, that's not going to be you. Because at this time I had already had the YouTube channel. So I had more eyes on me. And I had people looking, and I felt like almost an obligation to show people. And this was before, like now people do shows all the time. There's a whole transformation division, right? That didn't at least exist to my knowledge at that time, right? Like I had never even heard of that. So your boy got dead last in the show. But when I kind of came back from the show, I literally decided I'm not tracking anymore because I just couldn't do it. It was so overwhelming tracking calories, macros. I was tracking for the entire show, right? Every gram of everything that went into my body. And I kind of, at that point, I think I really started to adopt the good enough mentality of like, as long as like your diet's not going to be as on point as it was when you were competing, but there's no reason for it to be like that. And you need to eat more anyways. And so I kind of just slowly started to like add more calories. I was working out more. And, I definitely went through some phases though. There was like phases where I was definitely like over training and just training all the time to like almost like make it so I could eat more. Right. And like it's taken a lot of time, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I wish I could point at it because I get people that ask me that question all the time. Honestly, like I'm struggling with binge eating. Like, how can I fix it? And I just like, there's no really one answer because I think everyone's reason why they're binge eating, the reason why they're going down that road is different. And so it's impossible to really give an answer that's going to blanket statement everyone. But for me, it was one, realizing that I don't need to be my lowest weight at all times because that would be miserable. Like I weigh like 215 now. I was 180 when I competed. Like that's 35 pounds. Like, so if I had this idea in my brain that I am a failure if I'm not at my lowest weight, then I would always feel like a failure, And so I kind of just started to take my foot off the gas of like feeling like I have to be super, super lean, and leaned into other ways that I can use my body. Right. Like I started doing CrossFit at this time. I started realizing and that was a big thing for me, because I started to realize that there's so much more to fitness than just how you look. Right. It's like, how does your body move? How much weight can you lift? And again, one thing led to another. And it's been it's been like 8 years since I did that show. And I would say like I haven't really struggled with like binge eating to how I was before the show. Yeah. And I'm not sitting here saying do a show to fix your binge eating. That is the opposite of what I'm trying to say. But that's just the timeline for me, like how things kind of, I think I was starting to work on myself and realize more about myself in that moment. And it all just, and I think the age that I was getting older. I was learning more about just so many things in life. And so it led me into really being a little bit more introspective of like, why am I doing this? And then also, what is the end if I continue going down this path? And that was something that I was not looking forward to. So I was like, I need to course correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like to me, and I don't even know if you're aware of this, and it might be something that you experience in other areas of life, but it sounds like you are very clear and good at like making a decision.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like what people make crappy decisions. Like they're just like, oh, I want to do this, but like, I don't know. Like, it seems like you are very good at being like, no, I'm doing this no matter like what. Mm-hmm. Like, so that's something that like a lot of people, like even myself, I'm continually working on. But like in those moments where you've made that decision and you face those either cravings, temptations, a way of going off per se, like in those moments, is there something that you tap into or do to kind of get you through those? Do you not experience those as much as you think? Mm-hmm. Like in those moments where you're like, I could just throw it all out the window right now. What is it that you do that like gets you back to the decision you've made?
Well, I think part of it comes down to, so I have ADHD, right? I was diagnosed when I was a wee lad. It was ADD, but now I guess it's all kind of blanketed under the same thing. But so one thing I've learned about myself in the past few years is how that affects my life. And one of the ways is there's positives and there's negatives. And even to the positives, there are negatives to the positives. Okay. And so the biggest thing for me that I think it helps explain that, and this isn't going to be for everyone, everyone's different, right? That has ADHD, is hyperfixation. And I've realized that is something that has been with me my entire life, right? So like the first thing was probably skateboarding when I was really young, and then it became drumming for a very big portion of my life, and then it was weight loss for a while. And I really do think that that's how I was able to, like, that click moment is like, I think that's when the hyperfixation started, and I think I was realizing without realizing this is different this time because I have these urges. It's like I have to consume every bit of information I can find about this thing, right? And it's still something that I struggle with or that I deal with. It's been like for a while it was tennis. Right now it's video games. Like I'll go through, like I'll have a video game that I really like, and then I've watched 30 hours of content on the video game before.
There was a reason your intro was like an extra paragraph long. Yeah,
exactly. Like it's just like there's been so many different eras, that I kind of like enjoy, and I think like honestly that's one of them. Which, to answer your question, is why sometimes it feels like I have that otherworldly like resolve to be like, this is what I'm doing, right? But the thing that's frustrating is that goes away eventually. It just does. And so like for me, I don't know why. I think like it was this combination of the hyperfixation. When I'm talking about the weight loss right now, it was this combination of the hyperfixation that I had, and then the dopamine that I think I was getting by seeing the results. Mm-hmm. It was like, dude, I am fixated on this thing and I'm good at it. And that like was this mix of like just the ultimate, I guess, high. I just felt so good.
So I can.
I'm
sorry, I did not mean to cut you off.
No, you go.
I can 100% agree with the hyperfixation thing when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to doing a show. I think that's how really I got through doing the transformation bodybuilding show that I did, because that was something for me, like when the whole concept of like doing the prep for the show, I at first was just like, you're gonna fall off a little bit. Like, you've never been perfect at anything. And then it was like that hyperfixation kicked in because I have the ADHD and whatever. And it was like, you can't fall off. Like, you have too many eyes looking at you doing this, and this is your end goal. You need to get on that stage. You need to do all that. And I don't know if we've talked about this, but like, I did that show with a broken back, so like I couldn't even walk, and no one knew that my back was broken. And I literally tooth and nail crawled on that stage in order to pose down. Do you think that doing a show was detrimental to your mental health afterward? Because for me, it was like, to what you were saying before, I was definitely afraid of gaining weight after the show. But my transition was a little bit different because like, it was like I got off stage and I literally went into an OR and had back surgery. So it was like trying to reverse diet and trying to heal and trying not to gain like, 80 pounds. And I was a mental mess. So like, do you think that the show kind of messed with your head a little bit, fucked with you any which way?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I try not. I mean, anyone can make their own decision, but
Right.
like I say, if you were to ask my advice, and you're losing a lot of weight and you're thinking about doing a show, I'm always like, don't do it, don't do it, because the people that I love and respect have struggled a lot with the show. Danny, I love you. You know what I mean? And like, honestly, like, I'm not even joking. Me and Danny have talked about this, like seeing what he went through, and it makes me emotional because like I was kind of shitty at the time too, but like I don't want people to go through that, man. Like it's fucking horrible. It's just, it is like how, especially if you're posting online, like how people can just be, man. And it's just like, losing weight is already so difficult, you know what I mean? And like, it's something that it just takes so much effort, and then like putting a show on top of it, and then asking yourself to get super lean when you have been, especially if you've someone that have been struggling with your weight for a long time. Like, I think maybe it might be a little bit different if you like just, you injured yourself and you gained a ton of weight and it was like super abnormal, and it, like, everyone's different. That's why I don't want to tell anyone what to do. But if you're someone like, at least like me, that struggle with weight your whole life, and then you go from losing weight to then like, I'm going to get as lean as physically possible, it just can really mess with you, and like for me, it was like, I am appreciative of it because it taught me a lot about myself and like how to learn how many calories are in certain foods, like the nuts and bolts of weight loss and nutrition. It really helped me kind of like, because I had to be dialed in, but like I could have figured that stuff out a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it definitely had some ramifications for sure.
But do you think, I know that I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but because the bodybuilding thing was brought up, like current landscape of everything is like in weight loss now, especially on social media, is like you lose the weight, you either have skin surgery or you don't have skin surgery, and then you hop on stage. Like that's the evolution of a weight loss person now, right? And go ahead.
I'm just to add on to what you're saying. It is crazy to me. Like even when me and John did a show, like that wasn't a thing.
Right.
Like there wasn't like a transformation division to like aspire to, where now it definitely is like a thing that people do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I
So,
also
like, basically, I did it before it was cool,
Really?
So I personally didn't want to do a transformation show. I just did it because like there was one available. I wanted to do a regular show. My personal trainer, my entire weight loss career, I guess, was a bodybuilder. So it was just something I aspired to do. It was just like the inside joke always with me and him. It was like, I was there for the first time he was on stage. So he was always just like, watch, one day I'm going to be there when you're on stage. And then I just kind of got bit by the bug of wanting to do it. And then Poro had won Summer Shredding. And I was like, oh, that's a cool concept. Not realizing that they were going to be passing out Kool-Aid to brainwash everyone. And anyway, that's a show for another day. But and the politics and whatnot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
You guys need to record that one next one because I want to hear that one.
No. No one wants to hear that one.
If Arpino went into that, he'd end up on your channel, John.
Yeah, I would have the total. Yeah, it'd be an expose on J.Up's journey, and I never. That is my biggest fear, actually, is ending up on your YouTube page.
Dude, John at this point is like the goobs of weight loss community. Like you see like John tagged you in a post, you're like, oh shit.
Yes. Bro, I get petrified every time I make a post. I'm like, fuck, is this the one? Is this the one that gets me on John's page?
I'm a nice boy.
I know you are. I love you. Hey, listen. All jokes aside, I've said this every time that we've had a podcast together. If it wasn't for you being vulnerable enough to post your journey, I would have never even dared to post mine. So I appreciate you and everything that you've done. And I don't care about any of the bad things that people say about you. I love you.
all the tons of things that people say.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay. So don't do a bodybuilding show. Got
No,
it.
I would. Yeah, definitely. If you're listening to this, don't fucking do it.
All three of us have definitely have been down that road, and I like to explain it like it's like 4 months of hell for one of like the best days ever, but like you have a lot of other awesome days.
Did you place, Danny? Did you place?
No, I got last.
Did you place?
Oh well, second last.
Oh, all right, so I'm the only one here who placed and shit. All right, cool.
Hey, I got a transformation award.
No, I got a participation.
And John got a sword.
You did a fake
sword.
Yeah, it's right there.
What
He got
the
a sword.
fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just built different. What can I say? I don't know. I get last and I still get a sword. I don't know. It's just how it is.
I got that right there, and I was told my bad. We wanted to give it to the dude with all the skin. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Oh my god! You got to tell it eventually. Now you're dropping all the hints to it. Anyways, so from here, John, something you've been talking about a lot lately is the growing sensation around GLP1s, which honestly is kind of coming with a new wave of bariatric surgery as well, just because like they're kind of having to like keep up to like the changes. So where a lot of people think that you hate everyone who doesn't do it naturally, but
I mean, they're right.
I know this. Clip it. But where's your final stand on who you think GLP1s and surgery is for? What do you think? Take it away.
Man, well, at the end of the day, I am just a dude, and so like I try my best to be like, this is just how I feel. But like when it comes to surgery and GLP-1 now, right? Like before, it's just crazy because like of how much, like it literally in like 3 years, 2 years really, GLP-1 as far as like not that it existed, but like in this cultural zeitgeist that we're in now, like it didn't exist 2 years ago, right? Correct. It did exist, but you know what I'm saying. And so it's been very interesting, and I've been learning over that time too, right? And so, but when it comes to like the weight loss surgery, I've always been the stance of like, I think that it can definitely save people's lives, and I think that it has the potential to be a very, very positive thing. Plenty of people, right? I just did an interview with people that were on my 600-pound life, and one of them got the surgery, one of them actually didn't. But one of them got the surgery, and he even said himself, like it saved his life. It was life-changing for him, right? And so, I am not going to be that person that's like, if you get weight loss surgery, it doesn't count, or it's not the same or whatever, right? It's definitely, it can be life-changing. What I've always said to people that are considering that is like, do it with as much caution as possible, because you are doing a life-altering surgery, right? This is something that at the end of the day, the way I see it is like there is risk involved, right? And so in the way I see it is like weight loss surgery is going to be the most risk, right? And then because of just like complications of surgery and that all the diets and everything, like I know it gets a little bit easier over time, but like especially right after surgery, you have to be pretty strict. Like there's a lot of complications that can come from you not being on point, I guess would be the best way to put it. And then I would say under the surgery is probably going to be like, a GLP-1 with like a serious medication that you're putting into your body that does have its own set of risks, right? And then the next one down, I don't know if this is really how I feel, but I would say like a really strict diet, like one of the really intense, like you can only eat the specific thing. That stuff will, like those things will work, if you're in the deficit, that will work, but there's a lot of risk kind of involved with that. And then there's like the bottom where it's like, trying to learn about nutrition and trying to make better decisions over time and losing the weight, quote unquote, naturally or without assistance, or I don't know what the correct term to use is, but like, because like, but the thing is there's still risks with that, right? Like binge eating was something I struggled with, you know, body dysmorphia, the things that you're going to go through with that. Loose skin is, I get very annoyed because people say, oh, if you didn't have surgery, you wouldn't have loose skin. I'm like, you're an idiot. But like, that's just like, you are going to, loose skin is just part of losing weight. But that is something that there are plenty of people that I've had message me that said, I would lose weight, but I don't want loose skin. And I'm like, well, don't worry about it. You probably won't get it then, you know? But like there are risks involved with even just losing weight. Right. And so that's kind of the way that I see it, like as kind of almost like a pyramid or whatever. Right. And so I think it's like, but again, I'm not even sure if like how much I'm not like glued and like that is absolutely how I feel, but that's just in my brain what kind of makes sense as far as the steps are concerned. But the GLP-1s are new, right? And so like I don't know that much about them. I mean, I know probably more than like someone that doesn't know anything about them, but it's not like I know as much as anyone I think can, apart from people that know they're much smarter than me, right? But like we don't know what the side effects are going to be in like really, really long term. And so who knows? Maybe I'll be like, maybe GLP-1s are like at the top. I don't know, right? But that's not me trying to say that those things are bad or anything like that. But it's just like when if I'm going to do a risk assessment, that's the way that I look at it. And the reason that I encourage people to try at the base, at the bottom, is because, again, there's less risk involved. And as you start moving your way up, you have to, one, cut more stuff out. And you have to, like, it becomes more of a commitment, I guess, and like more of a life altering thing. And so it's like, try it as much as much as possible without anything else, because I just feel like the risks involved are lower. Yeah. But if you have to make those steps forward, like I don't want people to feel like they are less than others, but I just really want people to believe, like at the end of the day, when I talk about this stuff, like the message that I want to send is that, like, I want people to believe that they can lose weight. That's what, like, at the end of the day, that's what I want people to believe. And so I don't want people to think that they can't do it unless they do this or they get this thing or they, you know what I mean? Because those things are expensive and not everyone has that money. And so, like, I don't know. I think maybe part of it is, like, I always do identify with how it was when I was very poor and feeling so, like, it felt so unreachable. And I just don't want people to feel like it's unreachable because they just can't afford it, you know? Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, I mean, I think it beautifully answers the question. Not that, you know, I asked this, but I think it really comes down to like levels of this, right? So I think that there's an ass for every seat. And what I mean is, like, if you're willing to have a surgery done to lose weight, you need to have some shit wrong with you, right? Like me, for example, I had sleep apnea since I was like 15 years old. I was on Lipitor at 11 and a half, 12 years old. You know what I mean? Like I was a walking health hazard. Like I shouldn't be talking to you guys right now. So for me, bariatric surgery was very, very necessary, because just like how you said it, when you were really big, you looked at weight loss as this thing that was never possible for you. And that's how I looked at it, just because of all my laundry list of medical conditions and the medications that I was on that was making me just gain more and more weight. So bariatric surgery for me was the only thing that gave me freedom. It was the only thing that took the burden of health off of the table, and then it allowed me to do everything else, because that's where my focus was. That was it. It was either you're gonna breathe, and if you're gonna breathe, then you have to be on this medication that's gonna make you fucking fat. Sorry, not to just keep cursing, but like that was the way that it was for me. And
yeah,
I don't think some just like regular person who needs to lose 40 pounds should ever go into a doctor's office and say, "Hey, I candidate for bariatric surgery." Ever.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know if you guys saw that clip from like Dr. Mike Israetel. There was a clip that he had that he was talking to like a podcast person, and they were like, what do you think about these medications? And he's like for the people that need them, like, of course you should use them. And he said, like, when you break it down to like the most common argument is like, oh, well, people just need more willpower. And he's like, well, people only have a certain amount of willpower in their day, in their life.
Right.
So if they're like have a family, they have a job that they're stressed about, they have the, like you were just saying, like it allowed you to like just focus on other aspects of your life and like make this easy. It's very true. Like when you're dealing with so many different life things, and then like your health, a lot of the times people's health gets put on the back burner.
Amen.
Right. And for some people, it just needs to be a thing of like, we just need to prioritize time differently and change some things. But that's obviously easier for certain people than others. So when you combine, I think, the trauma of upbringing that causes a lot of the habits that we develop, that then comes with life and the choices that we make that gives us the day-to-day life that we have, there are some people that are like, just have so much working against them that it's like, okay, this is just what I need to do, you know? And that's not for everyone, for sure. And you know, for me, GLP-1s were like, dude, I put them off for so long.
Yeah,
like I've watched other people around me have success.
We literally talked about it. And I remember I asked her, I was like, why haven't you thought about doing it? And you're like, I just don't think I need to do it. And I remember a conversation like that with you. Yeah.
And I believe that, like I wanted to feel like I had tried everything. And there was one basically, so after that we were together and talked about that in like January of this year, right? There was like a month where I was like, okay, this is it. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. Like I made that like choice. And I got like 7 days in, which I think for that time was like the longest I had stuck to something in a bit. And then it just fell off. Like after day 7, like it was like 8, 9, 10. And then it was like a month back off track, gained all the way back that I lost and some. And I was like, dude, like if this isn't it, then like when? And it got to the point where I was like, I'm almost 400 pounds. Like how many more times am I going to gain 20 pounds and then be like, well, maybe next time. Like you said, like it got to the point where like my sleep apnea, I could start to feel my breath like get harder and more difficult. Like I was like, dude, this is not good. And like, how much more time do I have to play with trying before it becomes like an actual risk? And so I just was like, it's something I need to try. And, you know, I was terrified for sure. Like that first shot, I was like, cause I hate the thought of being nauseous. Like, and that's a weird thing to me. Like everywhere you look on like mainstream media, everyone just talks about, oh, well, like you lose weight on Ozempic because it just makes you sick. Yeah, and like that might be the case for a lot of people. Right. But like, I haven't felt that at all. And like, I've met people who like, oh yeah, I feel nauseous on like the one day or the second day, but then I'm good. But like, there was this general consensus of like, no, you're just the reason you lose weight is because you're too sick to eat. Like that's what I thought was how it worked.
Yeah, I can understand not wanting to take it there.
Yeah, so I was like, dude, this is gonna I won't be able to function. Like if I'm nauseated, like I will not want to move, you know? And so I definitely was terrified after that first shot of what side effects I would experience. And then luckily it's only been very minor. But every time I go up, it's something that like I'm worried about. I just went up to 10 milligrams here recently just because I've just been struggling a little bit again. But you know, for me, like it was night and day difference of like not losing forever and all of a sudden only, you know, almost being 40 pounds down, you know? So I definitely think
like, with the GLP-1s, cause I talked a lot about the weight loss surgeries. And I know if people that watch my videos, if I don't bring up GLP-1s, they're gonna be like, brother. And so like, I think that when it comes to GLP-1s, like I don't have a problem with the person that is taking it, right? Like my mom's on them and she's lost a good amount of weight and she's very excited and I'm very happy for her because it's something that she's been wanting to do and that she needs to do for her health, right? And so like I am not against them for the person. Like me and Danny have had conversations about this. I'm not like, oh, you're on GLP-1, I'm still upset with you. Like that's not how I feel. When I talk about these medications, what I like to focus on more is the implications of, especially with the GLP-1s, how unbelievably popular they are right now. They're ubiquitous, man. Like everywhere you look, you see people talking about them, right? And like, it's just very interesting because honestly, at this point, at least for me, I've gotten so used to seeing people lose weight on these GLP-1 medications that when I see someone lose weight, I think, oh, they got on Ozempic. Like, that's just what I've started to think, because it is so, like,
do you want to know why I think that is?
Them.
Because for the first time ever, Americans realizing that we actually have an obesity epidemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just like, it's just so, like, so again, I'm not like saying that, oh, that person losing weight on Ozempic, that's the problem. It's just how much it's talked about, and how, like, you know, I talk a lot about like Ozempic influencers, and there are plenty of people that literally basically exist solely to talk about their Ozempic journey, but then also profit off of their Ozempic journey. Of course. And like, I just literally made a video about this right now. There are plenty of like these GLP-1, compounded GLP-1, so it's not Ozempic, but you know, it's Ozempic, that will say to influencers, literally, you can earn $200,000 a year, right, selling Ozempic, and then at the bottom of the email it says, think of it like a merch store for Ozempic. And I'm like, that is a problem. Wild. Like, that is a problem. Offering $20,000 for a 3-story Instagram post, right? Like, that's when I see that, that's when I'm like, we need to pump the brakes, because think about it. If you are being offered that much money, the chances of you talking about the negatives and the bad things that come with this medication, it's going to be lower, right? Yep. And like, you're only, of course, and I won't even blame the person. Of course, you're just going to make it seem as good as possible. If you are making money on commission as well, like, the more that you sell it, the more money you make. And I'm not saying that everyone that is doing that has those feelings. Correct. But what I am saying is, Danny, I know that you're on that train, all right? No, I'm just kidding. But like, what I am saying is that there are people that are.
Yeah.
Oh, there are 100%.
Everyone, but there are.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's wild to me that like, even before you started making videos on this, like, if you've ever looked, I can bring up my stories archives. Even from the start of being with like one of these companies, I was like, if I'm going to share about this, like, I've basically told them like, hey, from the start, like, I'm going to talk about it the way I want to, and you're going to just have to be okay with that. Like, and that was the only reason that we moved forward, because they're like, yeah, sure. And even now, like, sometimes when they pump out like the email to like everyone that works with them, and like, I'm supposed to do this or this, I'm like, you guys know, like, you know. And I just had a conversation with them, and I actually talked with them about this kind of like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And it was interesting to me. I didn't fully agree with like what they talked about, but they were like, if you look at it like this landscape, like, things are changing. And even despite GLP-1s, like, you know, like Blue Chew, for example, like an erectile dysfunction, you know, medication, that's on every podcast ever. Yeah. It literally doesn't matter what realm you're in, who you believe, what you believe. Blue Chew is a sponsor.
Blue Chew.
That goes right into our segment, our first sponsor of the podcast.
I would die for a Blue Chew fucking sponsorship, right? That's how you know you made it in the podcast world.
Oh, yeah, if it comes our way, we'll definitely do it.
We'll have the best penis commercial ever. It won't even matter.
This podcast.
Blue Chew works like if you were to lose 100 pounds.
Right.
Yeah, the 5 minutes of this podcast are magically deleted when the sponsorship goes live.
But no, like, there's medications like that have been out there and that have been growing in popularity. Yeah. And they were just like, you know, we think at least ours is like improving people's lives. And I was like, I don't fully get the, you know, because obviously there's probably less risk with some of the medications, but in reality there might not be. But it did like make me think a bit deeper on it. Like, it just feels like with the way of the world, like, medication being easily accessible especially through digital, is not like unheard of. Of course. You know what I mean? Like, with the way people are just less and less going in to see a doctor or have like a general person. Like, a lot of people have online doctors, go to whatever they can, because the reality, and this is what we talked about when I was on your channel, John, is the majority of messages I get are people who are struggling to get the medication or have been on it and are now struggling to get it because they got cut off, or yada, yada, yada. So depending on what realm of the internet you're on, there definitely is a lot of different messaging going on. Like, me and John, and even other John, Arpino, we've talked about this. Like, I bet you all three of our like weight loss like side of things that we see on a daily basis is all different.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know, we see some similarities, but a lot of it's probably of what the algorithm is feeding us, right? So it is definitely interesting to me. And I talked about this you could call it an expose after me and John's podcast. But I said, like, I recorded it myself, but I'll just say it on here because why not? But like, there's two ways that I see this going within the next 5 years. And that is, right now we're in the middle of an election. I'm not going to get political, but the election has got everyone's eyes focused on the election and not on what's actually going on in the world.
Yep.
So GLP-1s are kind of just on a back burner right now because like there's other things that are more important. When people get into office, I think that those are going to become more of a focus point. And it would be very surprising to me if Ozempic GLP-1s as a whole doesn't turn into almost like steroids within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Because either they're priced out or they're so difficult to get or whatever it is, people are going to start buying them like you would go get testosterone or D-ball from
the local guy
at the gym.
I see it in a different light as you. I see what you're saying with like the whole election year and stuff like that. But I
saw two things. So like it's either gonna turn into like a steroid like black market type thing, or peptides, which GLP-1 is a peptide. They're getting more and more popular, as I think that like that'll just be something you go to the gym and get as like a pre-workout, as like a supplement. Like, hey, you need help with, your testosterone, you need help with your weight loss. Here's a concoction. We'll fire you up. Like it's either going to go one in two directions. It's not going to balance itself out. It's going to either go like everyone has access to it and it's like just like a common thing, or is it so difficult to get that like you got to get it like off the side?
No, 100%. But my whole take on it also is like the only reason why these compounding pharmacies exist and these Hims and HenryMeds.com and stuff like that is because technically right now semaglutide, tirzepatide, all these GLP-1s are on the FDA shortage list. So they're allowed to be made by compounding pharmacies. The minute that they're not on these lists anymore, all these companies go away, all these influencers go away because they're legally not allowed to sell the drug anymore. Because Novo Disk, the makers of your Ozempics, your Wegovy, and I forget if they don't make Mounjaro, I don't think, in Zepbound. But regardless, they all have the patent on the drug itself, and once they can keep up with the supply, all that stuff dries up. So I think we're going to see more of a regulated GLP-1 space. I don't think it's going to be as gray area as it is now, and the field is going to get cleaned up a little bit. And I think you're going to see less of these third-party apps and services and whatever, and you're going to see more of bariatric companies where you would go get a bariatric surgery or something like that, rolling that out in their game plan and being exclusively like the only type of doctor, maybe besides an endocrinologist or something like that, who can actually prescribe these drugs to people. And people are going to have to jump through more hoops to get them. But right now, there's way too many creators in the space. There's way too many people making money off of it. And they've sexified it like you and I have talked about, Danny. And it's just too in your face.
That's one thing I definitely agree on with you, John, is like, yeah, it's just like there's a Roman commercial where it's like guys at a wedding and they're just like, you want help with hair,
right,
ED, your weight loss, like just sign up. We'll send it to you. I don't know. I think there's a lot of money at play, and I think that it's either going to go one direction or the other, and it's going to be very difficult for it to be like a thing that everyone eventually agrees on. But the other thing, and I have no way to look this up to fact check, so I'll just I can't remember who it was, but I thought I heard recently that like one of the patents was coming up for one of the big companies. So like and I could be completely wrong, but if that happens, then it would be it's gonna be interesting to see. Like I said, the next 5-10 years I think are gonna be very different than they are now. But yeah, for me, like it's just been something that I've been super careful every time I talk about like even people who message me like, hey, I want to get on this. I'm like, have you been on it before? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, what do you know? Because exactly. Before I just give you a link, like I need to know that like you know enough to make this like real decision for yourself that's going to potentially have long-term or short-term side effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's to anyone like listening to this podcast. Like me and John have talked before, like Arpino, like the whole point of this podcast is not to say like surgery and GLP-1s are the option.
Absolutely.
We always, want the people to do it the natural way if they can. But we also want to create a community for those who feel like they're at that end space and they're like thinking or doing whatever choice you're making, this is a space where you can learn, educate, make your own decision, and we'll hopefully bring on people to give you the info.
Yeah, I think it's a space for everyone, every walk of life who's lost weight to just come together and be that active community, right? Like in some form or another, there shouldn't be tribalism in weight loss. Like I think that's the dumbest thing ever, right? Because like, what are we mad at? We're mad that we lost weight, Like I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. Like, oh, I'm mad at you, saved your life. Fuck you. Like, so like, let's all like just try to get each other across the finish line, then push each other further back. I don't know. What do I know? I'm just some idiot who lost a bunch of weight.
You are an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I agree. I think like basically because like I agree with the sentiment, but I feel like it would be very silly for me to say we shouldn't talk about other people because it's literally what I do all the time. I can't really take that high road, to be honest. But
bro, you want to talk shit? Let's talk shit, bro.
Well, like I'm just trying.
We can end with that. Like, what with this content you make? Like, what is your number one goal? Because I feel like it's shifted a lot over the years. Like there was a time where in our stressful relationship, I was like, dude, you're just like a hater.
Yeah.
And then I feel like you got a bit more like well-rounded on the way you approach things, which people would not know. So if you're listening to this, you're like, no, I don't like John because he's just like a hater.
That's fair.
If you get past his thumbnails and his titles, the actual videos themselves are not a headpiece. Yeah, I know it's difficult to get past some of those thumbnails because I don't even care about being on a John's video, but sometimes I'm like, dude, run that thumbnail by me first, dog.
That you know what? That's what I'm really afraid of is the thumbnail that you're going to use online.
Run that thumbnail by me first because I just want to make sure I don't look like a piece of trash.
That's all Rachel, all right? You can't.
All right, cool. I got to be nicer to Rachel, though. That's what it is.
Yeah, Rachel loves me, luckily.
Nah, so I mean, Rachel does help me a lot, and so shout out to her because like she definitely, like just a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for sure she helps me with. But yeah, like so when it comes to that, something that me and Rachel we always kind of talk about concepts, and she's a producer, right? And so she just a lot of times will bring an idea to me, and then I kind of will hear what she has to say, and then I'll start to try and formulate my opinion. And something that's really important to me is that my videos are not, because I talk about like the fat acceptance side. I talk about people that have lost weight that I feel have gone maybe a little bit too far, right? Or just like, or like too health, like, the opposite side of like super fit people that can say some really stupid stuff in my opinion, right? And so like I try to hear what the things that are being said are and then formulate an opinion and share that opinion more than just be like, oh, look at this fat person. Isn't that funny? Ha ha ha, right? Or like, oh my God, they're so gross, right? Like, I think that people are going to feel that way. And so I try to be like, okay, why do people feel that way? And does that really make a lot of sense?
Right.
And like, one thing I say a lot in my videos is like, what are the implications of the things that are being discussed or the things that are happening in this video, what this person is saying, right? Instead of just being like, this fat person said something stupid, right? It's like, this is a person and like they're saying this information. What do I think about that? And like, how does that affect other people, especially if they're a more popular influencer? How does that affect the people that are looking up to them, right? And like following them and like really hearing what they're saying. And like, that's the thing that I try and always center who is being affected by this and why, what is the reason behind what this person is saying, right? And I've come to different conclusions. I usually won't say it in the video because I don't want to like really like say this is what this person is doing. But like in my head, I've come to conclusions that there are some people that genuinely believe the things that they're saying, regardless of if I agree with them or disagree with them. They actually believe it, and that's one thing. And then there's also people that you could say the word grifter, or that they don't really believe what they're saying or even care about what they're saying, but there is incentive, and that could just be attention, which is addictive, right? Or it could be monetarily as well. And so that's a whole nother thing, right? And I think that helping the people that would be consuming that content to look at it with a little bit more of a skeptical eye and and think about why is this person doing the thing that they're doing is important. But then at the same time, just because maybe you don't agree with what they're doing, or you think that what they're doing is a little bit shady or whatever, it doesn't mean that you have to be terrible to them, right? And so that's what I really try and do in my videos, the thumbnails aside. But like, as far as like when you get into the content, like I've had issues, and like I've had people that were not happy about like what a video said, and a lot of times they will, like, maybe they'll make like a response, but the response is very short, and like they don't fully go into a lot of the stuff that I'm saying. And I've seen people literally come to my videos and be like, this person said it, and then I watched the video and I was like, I feel like it was pretty balanced, right? And so like that's kind of what I hope. At the end of the day, if you really like someone and then I make a video about that person, the chances of you coming to my channel and be like, you know what, you're a cool dude, are pretty low. I get that. That's just how life is.
You know what, you're a cool dude.
Like, yeah, like it's
this other person.
Yeah,
you're the guy now.
Yeah, like that's just
my
how
tribal
it is,
chief,
right? Like, but like as far as like if someone is for the most part an outside observer and they look in and see the video that I made, I hope that they can be like, well, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, and like at least he wasn't a huge dick. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I hope. I understand people that are really huge fans of the person I make the video of. The chances of them thinking that about me are very low. That is what it is. But if someone's an outside observer and they're just kind of seeing what's going on, I would hope that even if they maybe don't fully agree with what I'm saying, at least they could see that, man, this dude could have been a lot worse.
But do you make it for the weight loss community, or are you making it for people outside of the weight loss community?
It just depends on what the video is about. Really, yeah. It's trying to
he really does have like two different audiences in his channel. Like the audience that watched the video of me and you, like a lot of them aren't going to be crossover with like the ones that watch like all the rest of the stuff.
Right. Until he bashes us,
which is why it got less. Which is why it got less views.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think as a person who knows you personally, like I said, like I've seen that growth of like, there was a time where I was a part of that group of people where I was like, he just feels like he's attacking people. I really don't feel like that way anymore. I haven't felt that way in years. And I think that even as a person outside looking, like giving devil's advocate to both sides, like I think a lot of the times, like I said, like whether people get past the thumbnail or not, like if they actually watch the video entirely, like some of the responses don't always make sense to what you've said in the video. This part I can definitely cut out because I know this stuff you're not cool with. But the recent one with what's her name again? Was it Natalie?
Is it Amy?
Amy
and half?
Amy and half.
Yeah. The recent one with Amy, like watching that, like on both sides, because like I didn't know her before you, but then now she shows up my feed all the time.
She was popping up in my feed before you did that, and I was just
yeah. And watching your video, then I was like, okay, I can see how it's gonna be tough. But then her response, I was like, it just doesn't feel like you watched the entirety. Like, in no part of it are you saying like the way she looks is like internally bad, or what she's doing is like this terrible thing. It's just like bringing attention to like, hey, like you have a large audience. It's important to think about what you're telling that audience.
Yeah. Like
that's to me what, at the end of the day, what I get from your videos is like, hey, I'm bringing awareness to this because like this is something where you like, and as an influencer, I feel this on like a regular basis. Like what we put out there, tens, potentially hundreds of thousands of people see that. And like, I know for me, like I'm not the smartest person, and I know that there's people that are above me and they're below me. And like, there's going to be people that like don't have the knowledge or the environment or whatever for them to get the right information. They're just going to see what you say and be like, well, this is the person I look up to because of XYZ video. So I'm just going to follow them on what they're saying here. And like, there are stories in the past of people like making or altering their life and stuff based on the decisions they've made because of like influencers and doing crazy shit. So we have such a small space, but like what we say still matters. And I think that when that's the focus, which I feel like a lot of your last few year content have been, like I feel like really it takes people to like put their ego aside for a sec to be like, hey, like, do I feel like I'm doing something wrong? No. Could I look at this and be like, hey, this was a wake up call. I know I need to adjust things a little bit, and I appreciate you, like it's hard because like you naturally want to just defend yourself. I'm one of the most defensive guys you'll ever meet. Yeah. But like,
I feel that.
Like even that video, like I felt some sort of way being in that space of like that I am making a commission off of the GLP-1, but like, okay, how can I take this? It's like I work with people with Airbnbs, and it's like an Airbnb review. People suck and they'll leave like a terrible review. But like from that review, is there something in there that actually, you know what? They kind of have a point here. Mm-hmm. Can I take that and adjust what I'm doing to better the experience of people in the future? Yeah. And it's like, that's what I think the focus needs to be with people who take a look at your content, because and especially for the people that go from here over there, if they do, like it really is like, just like hey, you have a lot of people you're talking to. Let's just talk about this. If you agree with me, if you don't, cool. But, if it's something that you're talking about, obviously it's something that you care about. Yeah. I know you wouldn't just talk about something that like, you're like, screw this, whatever.
Yeah. And like, when it comes to that video and like the response, right? One, I have nothing against Amy. I don't, like the video and the things that I tried to talk about were about the ideas and the implications of the things that were happening. I don't think she's a terrible person or disgusting or anything like that. She made her response, and, I saw it, and, I have no problem with her responding at all, because that's completely her right to do that. Right.
Yep.
And even if I feel that in the response, maybe I was misrepresented in my video, at the end of the day, I can't really complain about it, because that video wouldn't exist if my video didn't exist, right? And so it is what it is. I can say that for me, like so watching her video, her response, and then the comments and messages that I received from that, it was definitely not enjoyable. But
it was one of them more I noticed more than before.
But again, was I going to talk about it in a video and complain about it? No, I brought it on myself, right? And so it is what it is. But I knew I was not going to delete the video that I made, because I still 100% stand behind everything that I said. And so I don't like that I hurt people's feelings. That wasn't my intention. But just because someone's feelings are hurt and they have a large audience and maybe they inadvertently send people my way, like, that doesn't change the fact that I still believe the things that I was saying. Right. And so I wasn't going to go, like, I haven't talked about this really publicly at all. One, because it's really not that big of a deal. But two, because like the way I felt wasn't going to change. Yeah. And I knew that basically end game was get me to delete the video. That wasn't going to happen. Right. And so there's no reason for me to engage with the people saying mean stuff, because I'm not going to change their mind. And so I just like let the people comment, it is what it is. And then the thing that I did do to really, like, because of course when you're getting all that stuff coming at you, you're like, damn, did I like fuck up? Did I do something really bad? Right. Like, was that like really out of line? Because I don't want to do that. Right. I really don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to people that I trust. I'm not going to bring them up, but there are people that are kind of, they know a lot more about this stuff when it comes to the GLP-1s and those kind of things, right? And they said the same thing that everyone else has, and they even had other people that did not know who I was, did not know who she was, look at the video I had made, right? And they told me how they felt, and that made, because they were basically saying, I think that what you did wasn't I don't have a problem with it. I don't think you did anything quote unquote wrong. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that just kind of like, at the end of the day, I was just like, well, this is how I feel. I feel that I didn't do anything quote unquote wrong. And I shared how I felt in as a respectful way as I could. And other people that have nothing to do, they don't have, they're not going to like Danny with you, right? Obviously we're friends, right? So I expect you to be honest with me, but at the end of the day, it's just like, there's nothing like someone that has nothing to do with the whole situation, right? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, I'm sure there are plenty of people that know nothing to do with the situation that think that still what I did was maybe not the nicest thing, right? But at the end of the day, if I don't feel like I did anything wrong,
Right.
that's like I'm gonna stand behind how I feel, and like that video is still up for a reason, right? Because I still stand behind everything that I said in it, and you know, it is what it is. Like I'm glad that I can say that like there's okay. I was seeing some of the comments on the Instagram posts, which it's very interesting the difference in audience on Instagram versus TikTok. Because on TikTok, that video won.
I didn't even notice it until people started commenting on the ones that we had done together, like collab together.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So the difference is on TikTok, that video went like it's very popular, and all the comments are how I'm terrible. But then you go to Instagram, and on her video about me, on her page, the top comments are saying he didn't do anything wrong, and like they don't disagree.
Got it.
Right? So it's just very interesting. But then there was a comment that I saw on that post that said, "Oh my God, John made a video about me too." He was so respectful, and I really appreciate. I really liked what he had to say. So I can't imagine that he would do this.
Oh my God!
And I was just like, "Damn, that's so funny to me to see that comment."
That's gangsta.
But like at the end of the day, the reason that I haven't engaged is because I don't have with Amy. Like I don't have a problem with her, and I don't want anything bad to happen to her, and I'm not trying to have a back and forth like argument.
So I'm guessing you guys haven't talked.
No. I'm going to I'm not going to change how I feel. And like, what is the point of having a back and forth, basically argument? I just don't think it's going to do anything.
Right.
And so it's like, I've said how I felt, and like, I'm not going to pursue it anymore. I'm not going to like keep on like, oh, we need to make sure this stops and we need to cancel this. Like, no, I just said how I felt. And then that's it. It is what it is. That's kind of where I'm going to let it lie, you know?
Yeah.
My perspective, really quick before we put a pin in it, but like my perspective on the content that you do is that, have you ever seen like What If series of Marvel? You know who the Watcher is? So I look at you as the Watcher. You've been in the game long enough that there's a bunch of people that have come after you in this space, meaning like they all have pages now, they all have influence, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still the guy, one of the first guys who ever did it, and you just kind of keeping an eye on the community as a whole. Like, all right, this person's fucking up a little bit. Let's talk about how they're fucking up. And once I'm done talking about how they're fucking up, let's just move on to the next thing. Maybe they won't fuck up anymore. And if they do, congratulations, and they're a fuck up. And if not, then whatever. But I'm just going to let you all know, because I'm watching The Promised Land, that these people are fucking up. And I respect it. I'll respect it until the day I pop up on the Summer Jam screen, and then I'm fucking done.
No, I mean, I definitely don't see. I like that analogy, and it makes me feel very cool.
All right, good. I'm glad.
But I don't see myself that way. You know, I'm just like, I mean, to a point, I guess I do, because I have been doing this for a while, and I've seen what happens when people go down the quote unquote wrong path, or like, and how that can destroy you. Right. And I've tried to remain as grounded as possible and think to myself, like, how does this affect like a quote unquote normal person?
Yeah.
Not someone whose job it is to be on social media, not someone who is, you know, making YouTube videos for a living like myself. Right. Like I always try to think like, how does this affect the quote unquote normal person? And is this a positive or is this a negative? And how can that person better navigate the situation? Right. To be in a better position. Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot.
No, like I said, I think the last few years have been a testament to the person you've become, and that's why our friendship is better than ever. Because I feel like both of us have worked on a lot of the stuff that, you know, comes with life and maturity, but also like putting in the work. You know, realizing, hey, I struggle with this. I need to do better. So it's been awesome. It's been awesome to have you on the podcast.
Yes.
You know, my goal for this podcast is always to be as authentic as possible, and I feel like we definitely got some stuff out of you that you haven't talked before about. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your vulnerability. And where can people find you? What do you got going on? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah.
This is now is your time
My
to do so.
address is no, just kidding. Yeah, I mean, Obese the Beast on pretty much any social media platform. Nothing crazy going on. You know, I stream on Twitch if you want to go check that out. It's a good time. We kind of yap.
Gamer.
But Yeah, we play for some video games. But, yeah, if you, if I just, at the end of the day, I want to say this, like, if you're someone that wants to lose weight, one, I believe that you can do it. Yeah. Whatever way works for you is fine, but just please do your research as much as you possibly can and make sure that the decision that you make is because it's something that you want to do and not something that you are influenced to do by someone else.
Amen to that.
Make that decision for yourself and understand that there are plenty of people that are here to help you along the way, but no one person is a deity. They all make mistakes. And so don't try and put too much faith in anyone, myself included. Again, just think for yourself and keep yourself the number one priority. And don't think that what anyone is saying is like the gospel truth and you have to listen to everything they're doing.
Yep. Amen. And on that note, we want to thank New York Bariatric Company for buy one, get one free. Hey! Just kidding.
Don't fuck up my money.
We have no current association other than what our man does.
But shout out to New York Bariatric Group. And all the fine work that they're doing over there in all 28 locations around the United States.
It's been awesome, John. Thanks so much for going on, man.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.